The mountain did not roar at first, it whispered. A soft, shifting breath beneath layers of snow that had been piling for days, quiet, patient, waiting. The kind of silence that only the high peaks of Aosta Valley can hold. The kind that makes even experienced skiers pause, if they're listening closely enough. But on that morning near Courmayeur, not everyone heard it. The sky was a deceptive blue, stretched wide over the towering shadows of Mont Blanc. Fresh powder shimmered like untouched silk, drawing skiers higher, deeper, further into terrain that looked pristine, but was anything but stable. Days of relentless snowfall had built something dangerous beneath the beauty, layer upon layer, fragile and misaligned, a structure waiting to collapse, and then it did. It started with a crack, not loud, not dramatic, just a sharp fracture slicing through the snowpack like a line drawn by fate. In seconds, the surface gave way. What had seemed solid became fluid, cascading downward with terrifying speed. The avalanche didn't fall, it surged. A wall of white, swallowing everything in its path. Trees snapped like matchsticks. The ground disappeared. The air itself turned violent. 3 experienced skiers, seasoned, skilled, confident, were caught in that moment. They had read mountains before. They had trusted their instincts. But this time, the mountain rewrote the rules. There are no second chances when the slope decides to move. Witnesses later described the sound as something unnatural. Not just snow, but a deep rolling force, like the earth exhaling all at once. Within seconds, visibility vanished. The world turned into a blinding storm of ice and air, and then silence again. But this time, it was heavier. Rescue teams from Italian Alpine Rescue Service moved quickly. They always do. Time is everything when someone is buried beneath snow. Minutes can mean survival. Hours almost always mean loss. Helicopters cut through the thin mountain air, their blades echoing across valleys now isolated by danger. Entire villages in the region had already been cut off, roads buried, paths erased. Over 250 people suddenly found themselves trapped in a landscape that had transformed overnight from scenic to hostile. Evacuations began. In places like Valveni and Reims, Notre Dame, residents watched as helicopters became lifelines, lifting families, supplies, and hope out of areas that could no longer guarantee safety. But even as rescues unfolded, another moment was about to remind the world just how unpredictable this crisis had become. At a nearby ski area, a lift line stretched with skiers and snowboarders, unaware of what was building above them. Cameras were rolling casual recordings of a perfect day in the Alps. And then the horizon shifted. A massive powder cloud, born from another avalanche higher up, raced down the slope. It didn't look like destruction at first. It looked almost surreal. A rolling wave of white mist, moving too fast, too wide. People hesitated. Then they ran. The cloud swallowed the lift line in seconds, engulfing everything in a blizzard of force and confusion. Visibility dropped to 0. Breath turned sharp. Panic spread instantly. But somehow, miraculously, no lives were lost in that moment. The video spread quickly across the world. Millions watched the same terrifying seconds unfold. The beauty of the Alps turned into something almost otherworldly, a reminder that danger doesn't always arrive with warning. Sometimes it arrives disguised as wonder. Authorities had already issued warnings. Avalanche danger was rated at level 4, high. In mountain terms, that's a clear message. Conditions are unstable, and human-triggered avalanches are likely. But mountains don't enforce their own warnings. People do or don't. Experts from Fondazione Montagna Sicura and ANEVE had been tracking the evolving conditions closely. Snowpack instability, rapid temperature changes, wind-loaded slopes, all the ingredients were there. Still, the pull of fresh snow is powerful. It promises something rare, something untouched. And sometimes that promise comes at a cost. As news spread, comparisons began to surface. The proximity to the upcoming Milan Cortina 2026 Winter Olympics added an unsettling layer to the story. Just 200 kilometers away, preparations for one of the world's largest sporting events were underway. The contrast was stark: celebration on one side, crisis on the other. It raised questions, not just about safety, but about timing, awareness, and the growing unpredictability of alpine environments. Climate patterns have been shifting. Snowfall has become less predictable, often arriving in intense bursts rather than steady accumulations. Temperature swings destabilize layers that would otherwise bond. The result? Snowpacks that look solid but aren't. Back in the valley, recovery efforts continued. Search teams moved methodically, using probes, transceivers, and trained intuition to locate those buried. Every second mattered. Every signal, every hint of movement beneath the snow was followed with urgency. But the mountain had already decided its outcome for some. 3 lives lost. Not beginners, not reckless adventurers, but experienced skiers who understood the risks and still found themselves overpowered by forces beyond control. That's what makes avalanches so unsettling. They don't always target the unprepared. They remind everyone that preparation has limits. In the days that followed, the region remained on edge. Avalanche warnings persisted. Travel restrictions stayed in place. Helicopters continued to move across the sky, symbols of both rescue and caution. Tourists reconsidered plans. Locals adapted as they always do, respecting the mountain, reading its signs, waiting for stability to return. But something had shifted, not just in the snow, but in perception. Because this wasn't just another winter incident, it was a sequence, multiple avalanches, multiple close calls, a pattern that felt less like coincidence and more like a warning written across the slopes. And people were paying attention. The viral footage, the rescue operations, the rising danger levels, it all combined into a story that traveled far beyond the Alps. A story about nature's power, about human vulnerability, and about the thin line between adventure and risk. Yet even in the aftermath, the mountains remained what they have always been: beautiful, silent, unpredictable. Ski tracks would eventually return. Lifts would run again, visitors would come back, drawn by the same allure that has defined places like Courmayeur for generations. But for those who were there, for those who saw the snow move, who felt the air change, who heard that first crack, something would never be the same. Because once you witness the mountain shift, you understand it's not just a place, it's a force. And in Aosta Valley, during those days of relentless snow and sudden collapse, that force made itself known in a way that no one who experienced it will ever forget. The whisper became a warning, the warning became a wave, and the wave became a moment frozen in memory where beauty and danger met, and the outcome depended on seconds, choices, and the fragile balance of snow resting on a mountainside. Some will call it tragedy. Others will call it nature. But those who understand the mountains will call it something else entirely: respect.